All right, ready for a real head scratcher? Today we're diving deep into, well, the mind itself. We're tackling philosopher Thomas Nagel and his famous question, what is it like to be a bat?
And let me tell you, that question, it's way more than just about bats. Nagel, he's really digging into the core of consciousness itself.
Okay, I'll be honest. When I first heard that title, I thought, come on, how can we possibly know what it feels like to be anything but ourselves?
You see, that's precisely the point Nagel's getting at. We toss around phrases like walk a mile in their shoes, but can we ever truly grasp what it's like to experience the world through another being's senses, another mind, even if it's another person, let alone, well, a bat?
So he's saying there's this whole internal world, this what it feels like to be alive that's completely unique to each individual.
Exactly. That's what he calls the subjective character of experience, and he thinks it's the key to understanding consciousness. We can map the brain, study neurons firing, but that doesn't tell us what it feels like to actually use that brain to experience the world.
It's like, how would you even explain the color red to someone who's been blind since birth?
Perfect example. You could describe the wavelength of light, the way the eye perceives it, even the emotions people associate with red. But none of that truly captures the actual experience of seeing red.
You're describing the tools, but not the masterpiece they create.
Exactly. That's what Nagel argues is missing when we try to reduce consciousness to just brain states or outward behavior. There's this whole other dimension, this inner world that we can't just explain away.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see it. But why bats? Why not, say, dogs, dolphins?
He uses bats because their sensory experience is so different from ours. They navigate primarily through echolocation, a sense we humans can barely even comprehend. It's the perfect example of just how vast the gulf between different subjective experiences can be.
You know, it reminds me when I was a kid, I wandered into our dark attic and suddenly this fluttering and squeaking, it was terrifying, like I was in the presence of something completely alien.
Exactly, that feeling, that sense of encountering something utterly other, that's exactly what Nagel wants us to tap into. We can try to imagine having wings, flying in the dark using sonar, but we're always limited by our own senses, our own human way of perceiving.
Okay, so if we can't truly get inside a bat's head, what does that even mean for understanding, well, anyone else? Are we stuck just looking out through our own human windows?
Well, Nagel doesn't say we can't understand each other at all. We clearly do, to a point. But he's really pushing us to see the limits of how we usually think about consciousness.
So it's not just we can't know what it's like to be a bat, but that this difficulty points to a bigger issue with how we grasp anything outside our own minds.
Exactly. Take emotions. We all feel joy, sadness, anger, right? But think about it. My experience of joy is built on my own neural wiring, my memories, my whole life, really. And yours is built on yours.
So even though we both say joy, no guarantee we're having the same thing internally.
Exactly. We might use the same words, make the same faces, even have similar physical reactions, but that actual feeling, that what it's likeness, it could be totally different.
That's kind of blowing my mind a little. Like, we're all living in our own little experience universes. But then where does that leave us? Doomed to misunderstand each other forever.
Not necessarily. Nagel says maybe instead of reducing subjective experience to something objective, we need a new kind of understanding altogether.
New understanding, like what would that even look like?
Wouldn't be easy. Imagine trying to build a machine that experiences the world like a bat does.
Yeah, that seems pretty impossible with current tech.
Right. But even trying, it could change what we think is possible. We might need totally new tech, new ways of thinking, just to start bridging that gap.
So not just a bat uses echolocation, but trying to recreate the feeling of using it to move through the world.
Yes. And who knows, maybe in trying to get at the experience of other beings, we learn something new about our own consciousness along the way.
Okay, I'm seeing why what is it like to be a bat is such a big deal in philosophy. But let's be real for a second. What practical difference does this make? It's not like we're all going to be talking to bats anytime soon.
Fair point. But the implications are huge. Take animal welfare. If we admit animals have rich inner lives, experiences that matter to them, it changes how we treat them.
We can't just assume that because an animal doesn't experience things exactly like us, that their experiences are less important.
Exactly. And it's not just animals. Think about artificial intelligence. The more complex AI gets, the bigger the question becomes. Can machines have subjective experience? Can they feel and perceive? That's becoming very real.
So this isn't just some abstract philosophy. It could change how we treat other beings, how we design tech, maybe even how we understand consciousness itself.
Precisely. And that's the power of Nagel's question. It forces us to confront what we don't know, to be humbled by that vastness, and to look at consciousness with a fresh sense of wonder.
It's amazing we started with bats, and now we're talking AI and the nature of reality itself. This is why these deep dives are so great, always unexpected.
That's Nagel for you. Simple question opens up like a whole universe of philosophical puzzles.
Like he's saying, we think we've got consciousness figured out, but what if we're barely scratching the surface?
Exactly. He even talked about, imagine this, alien life, but with consciousness so strange we can't even wrap our minds around it.
So, back to my attic bat, but now it's a Martian with senses we can't even comprehend.
In a way, yeah. But that's the key, right? Nagel makes us realize our human experience, it's just one viewpoint. Out there, there could be countless others most will never grasp.
Makes you think, what are we blind to? What's out there that our senses, our brains, weren't built to pick up on?
It's a profound thought, and it shows how important philosophy is. We may never have all the answers about consciousness, about reality, but just asking these questions, wrestling with them, it changes how we see everything.
So what now? Are we stuck in our own heads, forever cut off from the full experience of other beings?
Well, Nagel doesn't leave us completely in the dark. He thinks that even if we can't directly experience the world like another being, we might still be able to understand their subjective world better.
Okay, how do we do that?
He talks about this idea of objective phenomenology, basically finding new ways to describe subjective experience that go beyond simply observing their behavior.
So instead of just bats use echolocation, we'd try to find a way to express what the world feels like through sonar.
Exactly. He admits it's a tough one, maybe even impossible sometimes. But even trying could change how we understand other minds, how we relate to them.
This has been quite the journey, from bats in the attic to alien consciousness.
And I think that's a perfect place to leave it, because if Nagel teaches us anything, it's this. Never underestimate a good question. Even if it seems impossible, even if it makes your head spin, those big questions, they lead to the most profound insights.
You've definitely given me a lot to think about. Guess I'll be pondering the mysteries of consciousness, and maybe keeping an ear out for any unexpected flutters in the dark. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and as always, stay curious.